Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Our first 2020 episode of
Yay.
the OSINT Curious Webcast. Yeah, welcome back. Happy New Year to everybody. This actually kicks off our second year of doing webcasts.
Yeah.
Last year we did 26 of them, and this year we are looking to do some really cool ones too. And this week we have our normal people, myself, Micah Hoffman. We also have Ginsberg. Say hi to everybody, Ginsberg.
What's up, everybody? Happy 2020.
2020. And Nico.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Dutch OSINT guy. Sector 035.
Hey, welcome to the new year.
Yeah. And we're also joined with our first guest of 2020, Roelof, who is the creator of Vortimo. Roelof, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hi, everyone.
Terrific.
Hi.
Hello and welcome to our show. Just a couple of things to get out of the way before we start off here. We do have a bunch of people that are attending attending live with us via the chat. If you have any questions and you're attending live, please go ahead and use the QA function, and we will go ahead and take your questions for Roelof or for us, and we'll go ahead and announce it on air. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and let's get started. First, let's go ahead and talk to Roelof here a little bit. Roelof, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, how you came into making a pretty cool tool, and what you do when you're not doing Vortimo stuff.
Thanks, Micah. Yeah, my background is actually in IT security. I started a company with a couple of friends in 2000 that was called SensePost, and we did security assessments and pen testing and that kind of thing. And my kind of role there was more doing external pen testing, over the internet, those kind of things. And I think I was there for about 7 years. And it became, it became too serious for me. We were 15 people. I know nowadays they're still going strong. I think they're about 80, 90 people. But I left in 2007. And then in start of 2007, 2008, I started another company that was called Paterva. And we made a product called Maltigo.
Yeah.
I think I know that one.
Yeah, I think most people on here know Paterva and Maltigo, Case File, and all of the other versions.
Yeah. And so I think, I started making Maltigo, and the idea with Maltigo because, I had this idea that a lot of the footprinting work that I was doing during external reconnaissance of networks is really structured data that could be visualized pretty neatly with a graph, and then it became pretty easy to realize that a lot of other things were also connected, like via who's information. Back in the day when we still had who's, we had you could link email addresses to domains, and then from email addresses you can link it back to social network profiles, and those things became little pieces of code that eventually we called transforms, and that became a very successful product over the years. I left Paterva in December of 2017, so it's now it's a little bit more than 2 years ago. And also partly there because it was getting to be a pretty big company at the end, and I'm not really good with big companies and those kind of things. And also because I've been doing it then at that stage for 10 years. So if you were doing a talk, I used to do a lot of talks at Black Hat and DEF CON and a lot of security conferences. And if you just start doing a talk and you basically submit to the review board and they go, it's Maltigo again. Then, you really have to start digging deep in order to make it really cool. I guess that's part of, those two things combined. I don't think I was the right kind of personality to commercially take the product where it should go. And so, that combined with the fact that, I wanted some new challenges, made me leave the company. So I left as managing director in December 2017. And then for a year, I basically painted and cooked and baked and did all the, handyman jobs at the house. And then I think at the start of this year, at the end of, last year, so we in 2020 now, in the new year. Yeah. So I think at the beginning of 2019, I said, I really wanted to do, maybe I can give you a little bit of a background on where Vortimo comes from. Because I always wanted to build, my own browser. And if you ask anyone, at the cons and friends of mine, if you ask them what Roelof wanted to do, it was, hey, I want to build a new browser. I want to build my own browser. And I think...
Why did you want to build your own browser? I've always wondered, people have different passions. They want to do things. Was there something that you saw in other browsers that was missing, or do you just wanted the challenge?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we think of browsers today as... we have a model of the internet that's very much website and web page containing data model. But, it means kind of that if data resides in, if the same data resides on different places, you can't really get an overview of that data. You can't get an idea of what's really going on because you have more than, you basically have silos of information. If something is on Facebook and it's on Instagram and it's on Twitter and it's the same person, there's nothing that tells you today that is the same person. And so I was hoping to do something that is more kind of, data centric and not so much a source centric browser. So at the moment, a source centric, we kind of go, well, this is on this page and it's on this website. So it's source centric. And the other thing that I also think is, I think it's kind of ridiculous that the data providers, the people that have these websites, dictate to us how our data should be rendered. And so you have a situation where my view on data on, let's say, Instagram, is the same view as that my mother has on this data, and I have different needs than she has. So I want to see it in a different way. So I really don't like the idea that the owner of the information gets to decide the way that I consume the information, and that's why I wanted to build my own browser. Now you don't just get up one morning and build your own browser. That's pretty hardcore. You need a lot of developers. You need a lot of money. You need a lot of data if you want to have a data-centric model. So the problem is you really have to be one of the 4 big players. You have to be Google, or you have to be Microsoft, or Facebook, or Apple. And I'm not. So I said, well, okay, the only way that I can play this game at all is looking only at a small subset of data, and that small subset of data being the data that you've browsed. And therefore, you need to record everything, right? So you need to be looking only at the data that you actually, that you've browsed to, and then you can do things like object extraction from there. You could do all sorts of interesting things on a small subset of data because of the computing power. Now, I guess one of the biggest gripes that I've had with this, or struggles that I have with this, is that it makes a lot of sense to move that processing into the cloud. But the problem is that if you move it into the cloud, then everybody shouts, "Ooh, privacy!" and my data is moving off my personal computer onto the cloud, and so that makes it a little bit. And this is one of the issues that we always had with Maltego.
Well, and it did your building Vortimo actually come as a project that meshes with I want to build my own browser. So is this kind of the way you got in there?
But that is exactly yes, Micah.
Okay.
That is exactly how. So that the only way that I can do it is on a subset of data.
Okay. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Vortimo for those people that haven't heard of it before or haven't actually tried it yet?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's basically, like I said, it tries to be a different perspective. It tries to give you a different perspective on the data that you've already seen in your browser. So it records everything. It records all of the web pages. It then does object extraction on those on the text of those web pages. So object extraction, I mean, I'm going to put it real simple. I mean, we look for email addresses, we look for hashtags, we look for aliases. We also look for names. We do a pretty shitty job of it because it's really difficult and we need to do it all locally on a machine. So that's not that easy to do, but we kind of try to do it. And if you do it over many different web pages, then the results tend to be better than if you only look at one web page. But we look at things like telephone numbers, hashtags. At some stage, we were even extracting dates, like year, month, day, and day of the week, and things like this. It got a little bit too much. Mm-hmm. We also we extract the images that were on the pages, and then basically on those things, we allow you to simply click on any of those things that you collected and hand it off to a whole list of different links that we've put in there. Useful links like, I don't know, there's so many of those links. I gave an intern the job of, looking at all of the different things that are maybe interesting. And then you can ship the data off to there. But also, once you've tagged something and said, this piece of information is important to you, then we almost provide you with what I called like an augmented browsing experience, meaning that within the browser itself, we do things like underline certain terms, certain email addresses, things that you've marked as being important, but also things that the software kind of says, hey, you've seen this on a couple of pages, so maybe this is important to you, and I'm gonna kind of pull your attention to this term or email address or telephone number or name or whatever, and say, you've seen this a couple of times on other pages, maybe this is important to your investigation.
Now, that's an interesting point. You use the word investigation. So is Vortimo meant for open source intelligence investigations, penetration testing, recon? Did you build it for a certain market, or just, to accomplish the goal of recording and highlighting certain information on the internet?
Well, I mean, my background is security, and, mm-hmm. That's kind of where everyone that I know is from, the IT security and OSINT background. So I think it'd be a good idea to play to that strength as a start. But I can tell you that, for instance, my daughter, she's a candidate attorney. She's seen it and she's like, well, this would be great if for cases that we read, they read through like these cases, and the way that they connect things together from different transcripts is archaic. I mean, they basically have to make notes on a little notepad. So I think it can be used, on not just, on the OSINT community and on the intelligence and law enforcement, those, the kind of, we all know that kind of crowd. But for sure, that's what I'm playing towards at the moment, because that's the crowd and the technology and the kind of industry that I know.
And that's basically why I think it was almost 6 or 7 weeks ago that I, sort of called you and Vortimo out, like, please make some more explainers about the working of Maltego, because from my experience and background, every time you roll out a tool like this, and the more novice beginner people get so lost in all the buttons they can push and all the options it had, and well, with this still being in beta, I could only imagine people misinterpreting the intentions of Vortimo, its options. So again, thank you for making those series of videos, because I think now, especially, I'm an OSINT practitioner for over 20 years, so I can figure it out myself, probably. At least I hope so. I try. At least I try.
You do try. We'll give you that. Yeah.
Okay.
I look at how you went from I can figure it out. I kind of can figure it out. I try to figure it out.
Yeah, I try. So let's say damage control, right? So that's why I thought it was really important to ask you, like, can you please tell the audience who immediately dive on a beta version of looking to be pretty awesome tool, but it would be so bad if they decided to leave it alone, or maybe start using it in a wrong way. So, and that's why I think, especially when it comes to non-OSINT people or non-online investigators, but just a general journalist or a researcher who isn't doing this on a daily basis, it's really important that they know how to use the software by itself. So just wanted to briefly bring that.
Well, and I like the fact that you didn't just make Roelof. You didn't just make a PDF or a FAQ. You actually made a video, which I appreciate, because I don't like reading manuals. It's just I come from a cyber background too. We just don't like doing it.
So Micah, I don't like writing documents either.
Good.
So Nico, just to reply to what you said, I think. Look, I mean, I guess coming from Multigo, a background myself, this is pretty simple compared to what we did in the past. So I thought it was kind of, I said to people, my intention was this, to make a tool that is like a broom. And nobody writes a manual for a broom or doesn't understand how to use a broom, or a fork. A fork doesn't come with a little tutorial on how to use a fork. But clearly I failed in this, because if it's still a lot of buttons and things, and looking at it, I mean, I guess it is because, I kind of looked, I was there in every step of the growing up of this thing, and then we add this and then we add this, so everything kind of makes sense to me and falls into place. But I can appreciate if you say, that it's not something that has a one button interface that says show me the evidence.
Yeah, and I just think it should be it's so powerful that people should know its power properly instead of misinterpreting things, because then research can go wrong, right? So that was my idea about asking you to clarify it a little bit, which was a wonderful job. So
thanks.
I can ask you another question. So if looking at your background, what you've done over, well, probably decades, listening to what you've just told us, what is something that you would like to learn or get better at, looking at maybe your info security background or maybe the developing of tools? Is there something in particular that you have never come to in improving?
I would say, look, I mean, it's one of the things that I'm consistently bad at, and it seems to not be my forte, would be would be understanding the business side of things always. I tend to not be that great at that, and I've been told that in the past as well. So and even even with people going, understanding what it is exactly what they want.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? It's I couldn't agree more. I think that's a hard part. Looking, if you are a hands-on practical guy and then you have to make hard decisions, right? That's sometimes not an easy job. Should never be underestimated.
Yeah. And I think, Nico, just the other thing, I think one of the things that was always been a very difficult thing for me was determining what new features to put in next. So the priority of the features, not necessarily the features, because we always had a list of features, 100 at any stage, but then deciding, okay, this is what we're going to do, and scaling even the development side of things up to the level where you could do more of those things at the same time was always, I'm just bad at that.
Yeah, well, we can be good at all things, right? I think we all have our own fall pits, right? So looking at that and looking at the answer you just gave me, what would be advice you could give to, let's say, our attendees or listeners and viewers who are maybe starting their own business or in the OSINT field? What's your maybe biggest lessons learned that you want to, let us know?
Okay, so I mean that's a big question.
Yeah, I like them big.
I think, look, I think at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that we did right with Maltego, and I can only speak about Maltego now, right? Because I'm only 1 year into this new venture, is that the community was really important to us. And I think, everybody says that. Everybody says, oh, but the community is important. But let me tell you, when we managed to put a version, the community edition of Maltego on the Kali Linux distribution, that was probably one of the best things we could have done ever. And I mean, it's not something we did. Mats and them invited us to be, part of their distribution. So I guess you have to have something that's not entirely shitty, but
not entirely shitty. That's a good bar to aim for.
So we were lucky that their team, him and the team said, hey, do you want to be part of this? But it meant that the community all of a sudden became massive, and one of our ways that we always worked was what I called, in terms of going into an organization was like, from the bottom up. So we try to make this technology appealing to the end user, e.g. the engineers, the analysts, the people on the ground, the guys that are doing the work. And then they take that to their superiors and say, this stuff really works. And then you might sell nothing. You might sell 1 or 2 licenses. But as time goes on, those people start saying to their superiors and, to other members within the team, hey, this software is great. So the bottom line is you need to appeal to the people that are using the software, not the people that you think are going to buy the software.
Yeah, I think that makes good sense. Yeah.
So, Roelof, when you're making the tool and you're thinking about like the world of OSINT that we're living in now, I can't help but think that a lot of the OSINT that we're doing, it has something to do with social media. Does social media have any? Does your tool or do you have any issues with social media? Because I know that Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, they're always doing security things to make it more challenging for people to exploit their platform, extract data, and gosh, that's sometimes what we have to do for our investigation. So do you have any issues with some certain websites? And I'm not asking you to name the websites. I'm just
Sure.
In general.
Sure. So that's a really good question. I like that question. When we started, when I started Maltego, like way back, within the first year, interestingly enough, we got a cease and desist from a very big social network. I can't tell you who, but I'm sure you can guess.
Yep.
And they
MySpace.
Yeah, it was. It
MySpace.
was not. it wasn't. Okay. So, and that made us change our thinking back then, and it also contributed to the architecture that we used at the end. Now, recently, I gave a talk at a conference in the Netherlands about exactly about this subject, and that is, the different ways, the challenges and different ways of getting information off a social network. So there's almost like two ways that we do it today, and that is either through the APIs that they have, and then you need to live with the limitations of that API, and also you need to be able to know that at any stage your provider can kill that API and just decide, hey, no longer, we're not having this. And we saw that exactly with the Graph API with Facebook, right?
Yep.
But on the other side, you can, and the other way of doing it is literally scraping it out of the, what it looks like on a screen, and scraping it out of the document object model. And there's pros and cons on either of those two, but in the end, and I'm saying this, having done it, I haven't done it in 10 years, but I've worked close with the guys that have been doing it. So, as you know, Social Links and SocialNet, they've been providers of those transforms to Maltego, and we've seen exactly the challenges that they had to deal with. Right now, the only thing that I can say to listeners is that you might look at their service and say, sure, it's expensive, right? But if you're not paying for it, it means it's not going to be maintained. The trick is not to be able to scrape information off a website or a social network. The trick is to be doing it every day for the next 10 years.
Yes.
That is what's hard, because these guys are not idiots. They change their techniques in order to ensure that you don't scrape the pages. And so doing it once, and I've had so many people come to me and say, hey, listen, we've got a transform for Maltego, or we got this little app. It's really easy. Look, you put in an email address and we resolve it to let's say a Facebook profile. And I say, okay, great, but are you going to be able to do that for the next 5 years?
Yeah.
And and nobody has the answer for that. That is the trick. And that is why you're paying these people money, is because day in and day out, they need to sit there and find different ways to do this. And when something changed completely, they have a customer shouting at them 5 minutes later saying, hey, I'm just trying to resolve this email address to a Instagram profile, whatever it is, and it doesn't work. And that's why you're paying them money, and that's why you're paying them a lot of money.
Yeah, and many other tools, open source tools. ReconNG is the perfect one that comes to mind. Great tool in the beginning, and he accepted Tim Tomes accepted modules from everybody. And what happened was that there was some modules were being maintained and some were not. And then I would imagine what happened is when people install transforms into Maltego and those transforms would not work, they wouldn't say, oh, it's that transform, it's Maltego doesn't work in general. And you're like, no, Maltego works fine. You added something different.
Sure. I think the one thing, and this is something that I said in the talk that I gave as well, is that I don't see a model where software can be indefinitely free. And we have, or put it this way, if software that needs maintenance, and software within OSINT needs maintenance because we have a changing landscape. And I don't see a model where that software is free. It just can't be free unless it's sponsored somehow by someone that says, here's money to do this work. It just can't be, because then in the long term, it just won't be maintained.
Yeah, or it's maintained by a team of volunteers, and that presents its own set of challenges as well.
Yeah.
I would love to continue this conversation. We have not had a webcast, though, for 4 weeks, I think, and there's a ton of news. We would love it if you would stick around and help us process some of the news that we're going to be covering. But first, thank you very much, Roelof, for being on here. Thank you for making the tool. And one of our first sites that I want to show you is the VortimoTech.com website, where people can sign up for the beta 3. Is that right? And I think it said that this is like the last beta. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I mean, Micah, I'm basically saying beta 3 and you got to sign up because I don't want to do support. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha. And if you have more questions about Vortimo, as you can see, there's lots of nice pictures and videos and stuff here too. So thank you for making all of that for
Sure.
us.
Thanks,
Really,
guys.
really interesting. I will say that you've been a very big help on OSINT.team as well. I know that a lot of people have been reaching out to you on that, and I think that you interacting with the community over there at OSINT.team has really helped a lot of people kind of get better in regards to a lot of this tool and stuff. So that's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into the news, I do have just some huge thank yous to go out. First off, we got ourselves a new corporate sponsor. Thank you very much to Rendition InfoSec for being a sponsor of our podcast, Webcast, and our project. We also have several people that have come aboard from Kelsey and Joel, Taniso. We also got Michael, OSINT Techniques, Mirza, Robert, and Ed. Thank you so much for your contribution and helping us keep the lights on here at the OSINT Curious project.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah. Next, let's get into some of these news. So there is a page here on Aware Online that has the title Search for Telegram Groups Based on Location. Now, I love geolocation. Nico, Sector, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. Yeah, I added this. Aware Online, he's a Dutch guy, really, really nice guy, really awesome too. And he once in a while writes little articles with really like the little gems that you sometimes need. So this is just a basic tutorial on how to run a virtual phone or virtual Android within, I think you used Nox, how to use the location info and then open up Telegram and look for groups within the area. It's really simple. It's a small article, but he writes blogs like this, and I love them. It's just a few minutes of reading and a lot of information. So I just really wanted to give a little shout out to him.
After reading this, I tried to test this, and what I found really interesting as a use case, when you have huge demonstrations or riots, you can virtually place yourself on a map being in that same area. Yeah. And surprisingly, you will get a lot of people, which you then again can pivot into and corroborate to find out if they are actively participating in the demonstration. So for instance, if you are looking into, let's say, some kind of rally with some kind of political group and you want to know which people who are there, who have their geolocation groups and stuff turned on within Telegram, you could get, you could in potential get a good guess on who's there with whom and probably who's talking or connecting with whom. So I found it really interesting to immediately to get it to put to practice because, well, at this moment in time, practically the whole world is burning with demonstrations everywhere. So it's really neat to try it.
And it's interesting to see the geolocation aspect of it too, because a lot of platforms are moving to geolocation turned off by default, but now many of them are adding back in why don't you talk to the people that are near you that are on the platform, and people aren't turning that off. So doing the technique that he showed there to where you can just add people that are nearby you, that is amazing when you have a virtualized location. And there's another one here. Aware Online has create your own OSINT flowcharts. Now, we know about Michael Bazel's Intel Techniques flowcharts that are out there for OSINT processes and stuff. Here, he goes through, and again, it's a little short blog here that talks about creating your own flowcharts. These look like mind maps. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, that's XMindZen. He mentions it above. That's what he uses, but yeah, there are different tools you can use. But he uses it, the mind mapping software, he uses it to create his own little flowcharts because Micah Bazel's flowcharts are absolutely top-notch. But there are things changing once in a while in OSINT world, and it's always good to know how to create your own flowcharts. Just like to create your own tools or cheat sheets or whatever. Just one of those little things. Again, small blog, awesome content.
Yep, and I have a OSINT Mindmap that is not a flowchart per se, but it is something that is out there. It's on my GitHub.
Yoga.
Yeah, well, it's not even yoga. It's actually a mind map that we use in my class. It's essentially a template for github.com/webbreacher/OSINT tools. Of course, I spelled the tools with a zero. In OSINT tools, there's this OSINT Mindmap here. This OSINT Mindmap is one that has we've been using for about a year. Has a whole bunch of templated information in there. Some ideas for how you can use a mind map for scoping questions for an open source assessment, but also hey, if you're going to be collecting data, here's a whole bunch of things that you might want to think about. I'll be changing it in the coming weeks, months, but it's there.
I will say it is an amazing mind map. As someone who's been able to go through and actually use it, it has a lot of resources and a lot of specific pivot points that you'd be able to go through and kind of virtualize out there. It's a really, really useful tool that Micah made. So yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Actually, I put it out there. Steve Hall, one of my former students, was the one that actually made it what it is now. Put it on.
Just kidding.
Rainbow colors. Right, I take that back. All right.
I'm taking the Dutch OSINT way, guy. I'm trying, and then I think I'm trying, and then I'm gonna try to try. So
I'm gonna get you one day.
Well, here's another thing. This is on Twitter from user Catalyst256, Adam Maxwell, and he did a blog post about the certificate transparency list, but about looking at them as new certificates are being made. Is that right, guys?
Yeah.
Drain from the fire hose. That's really cool.
I really found this interesting because this is a particular field within the OSINT landscape that I'm not that good at because it just hasn't got my interest overall this year, or at least not enough. So I found this particular blog really interesting to learn from and learn how he does it. And I think that Sector, was it you that you also provided the Shodan filter list?
I think that's
complement article.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
For me, still Shodan, I like looking up stuff in Shodan from time to time, especially with certificates and all that kind of stuff. But it's still, there's so much for me to learn, because for me, this is more of a I like to call it technical OSINT, just because I like to call it that way. And this is more of a field that I have never been into in my past career. So this is something I really learned from.
Yeah, and if we go back to the blog post, what essentially it is you use a tool that is installed with, or can be installed once you have the Python programming app on your system. It's called pip. It's Python it's an installer for Python to install extra modules or libraries in Python's case. You, from a command line, do a pip3 install search stream, and then when you run search stream, it will go ahead and start listening to listening for any certification any certificate, HTTPS certificate that is made in, TLS or SSL certificate that is made, and then it'll show you where it was made, when it was made, and what domain it was made for. So you can monitor this stream if you are somebody that is concerned about somebody else making a typo squatting domain for you for your site, or doing something maliciously. You can monitor this and do some alerting off of it. Cool. One thing I wanted to just throw in here is don't F with cats. I finally finished. I flew back from somewhere today, and I finally finished this series. It's just 3 Netflix shorts, but it was really interesting. Did any of you watch it too?
I saw the trailer. I've not watched the whole thing. It looks almost disturbing, so I don't know.
No, it's really good. I've watched it. I had to watch it. I also send out a newsletter during the holidays with stuff like this. I've watched it all. It's really, really creepy story. And it really shows, on one hand, what the importance can be when the public starts searching, but also what the downfall might be. And yeah, also really big points about awareness for law enforcement when it comes to the public helping out, because that's one of the major parts of the story.
Yeah, those are some excellent points, Sector. And that was some of the things that I was going to highlight is one, this shows what happens when well-meaning people that don't understand about operational security, they don't understand about using false personas or research accounts or sock puppets on social media do. And essentially, no spoiler alert here, but they find somebody that is doing, what's that?
Well, they also found someone that's totally innocent, and it doesn't end very well with them.
Right, they did find somebody that was innocent, and then they went back onto the person that was essentially moved from killing animals to killing a person, and some of the people there were not using false personas, and the person found the killer actually was able to find out who these people were. Also, conversely, like what you said, Sector, is that some of the law enforcement were not available to accept help from just random people far away about something that they knew about that might have happened in their area. It is Netflix, and I know that was a little bit vague. It's Netflix, and I think it's worth a watch. There were disturbing parts they censored out. You don't see anything that's really bad, but they do discuss some really sensitive topics there. So
absolutely. Yep.
Just for y'all to know. Let's talk about facial recognition for the public. This was Nelson's log.
Yes.
Sector, is this you?
Yeah, I added it in.
This isn't you, but you added it.
Oh, no, I added it. No, it's not me. No, I know that Bellingcat also, I think it was Eric Toller, who wrote about facial recognition and find clones and those tools.
Yeah.
And yeah, here's someone else who also goes into like the facial recognition part of Yandex and the image recognition that Google and Bing, for instance, uses. And just to show, even with different ethnicities, sometimes there's a bit of a hit and miss, but Yandex still, it's just awesome. I got no clue what kind of techniques they have in the back end, but they provide some really good results. For now, what I see, a lot of them are Western people or people from like Eastern Europe. But yeah, it's just another small blog, someone diving in, doing some research, running some tests, and it's really good. Yandex is still king when it comes to that.
I think Yandex is a very good website for doing a lot of things, whether it's maps or translating, and for faces, it's absolutely my go-to website because it is just that good. And I think this person, Nelson, talks about that up here, that it appears that Yandex is doing more facial recognition instead of just, hey, this is a picture of somebody's face. Let me see if I can match color tones and stuff. But you know, who knows what's happening within Google and all of that. They might be doing the same thing.
Yep.
But Yandex, definitely awesome. Okay, Milcom, I'll bet, Nico, you put this one. It has to be. This has got SIGINT all over it, wow. And I know you're a SIGINT guy. Is that right?
Yeah, well,
yes.
I did. It was me again. No, I was triggered by this because this was during, the last week during the Iran incident with the downing of the plane. And this was posted by a guy on Twitter, which I will put in the show notes because I don't know. He does SIGINT monitoring all the time with a bunch of friends. So they have a bunch of radios lined up and they just track audio transponders. Let's say every radio signal coming from an airplane or something that can fly. And that's something, well, I just like to geek out on from time to time. But also with that, they use these call signs or codes to inform each other for risks, or something is coming ahead, or somebody's flying too low or too high. And that triggered me, because we were looking into what happened with that plane. Was it an accident? Was it downed by a rocket? Well, we all know by now that Iran made an accident. But at that moment in time, it was nearly impossible. And I found it really interesting that someone who is totally into signals intelligence decided to just post on Twitter, well, people, if you are looking to geek out on codes, this is a notebook which I have kept track of which call signs mean what. So if you ever in the future have an investigation where there's audio of, let's say, the pilot making a certain statement which you can't figure out, you probably can find it on SIGINT forums, blogs, where they keep track of what codes mean. So this was just me trying to point out that even if you do not have the expertise yourself, there will probably be some kind of blog or a database out there which can help you and which you can learn from again.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the bars really come down for signals intelligence with the release of $20 or $30 RTL SDRs, and a huge amount of information about how to use them out there. I got one from a buddy of mine, and within 15 minutes, I had installed software that allowed me to retrieve the ADS-B beacons coming off of airplanes, and I was pulling what planes are at what altitude and going in what velocity from about 16 to 30 miles away. So it's amazing what we can do with SIGINT now.
Yeah. And like you said, for like a few bucks, you can just play around and learn. So
Nico, you brought up this Bellingcat thing. They made some pretty big announcements and pretty big correlations discovery and stuff. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. Well, I thought it was a really cool week for open source intelligence in general. And Bellingcat, well, they made the news almost everywhere. Why? Because the team got pointed towards a video on Telegram on the 9th of January. And in that footage, there was an explosion to be seen. And, well, supposedly, initially, they said, this is a video of the downing of the PS752 plane, right? The Ukrainian plane, which immediately the team wanted to verify, is the video authentic and what can be seen? And team members like Nick Waters and Christo, they all jumped on it, and Giancarlo, and they did their thing, right? What I found really interesting in this one, that someone had a great mind and figured out that when you look at the video, you see an explosion, and a few seconds later, you hear the bang, right? Mm-hmm. So that's sound traveling at a particular speed. So someone within the team was on high alert or something, and they said, well, what if I can calculate the distance from that? And then I'll know approximately or near close enough where the person filming is in relation to the explosion. And then you can figure out, draw a circle where the boundaries are of that sound. And then you overlap it with the flight line of the PS752 and compare it. And, well, when you look at where the plane was going, the transponder lost connection. Why, we still do not know, but when you look at the sideways, it's, I think at Bellingcat, with high certainty and probability, have proven before Iran admitted that the plane was at least downed by something.
Right. And then after Bellingcat made that announcement, I saw that all over Twitter that there's a high likelihood that the plane was down by a missile, and we're going to continue to investigate. Some other things came out, like the announcement that there were bulldozers at the wreckage site, and Bellingcat was saying, hey, we're trying to document all of this. And then Iran, the United States, and I think the British intelligence agencies all said, yeah, this was a missile and it was intentional.
I think Trudeau came out first and said something to the effect of, like, they had pretty spot on evidence that linked it to them, and maybe even that it was a specific Russian style missile that was sold to Iran or something. And yeah, kind of corroborated from there.
The picture started circulating from the ditch with those heads, which we were not able to verify because there were not enough reference points of the area. We could, as Bellingcat, say, well, those ditches are known to be in Iran and also in that particular area, but we could not tie it to either the crash site, the shooting site, or the filming site. So,
yeah.
But it was really, I found it a really exciting and interesting week, and especially for me, I knew how to geolocate stuff, right? But I never would have thought of calculating the distance based on speed. So that was really something else for me to see.
Yeah, I loved how the story broke with social media, and then Bellingcat jumped on it, and other people jumped on it too, and then using physics and other things, and then eventually plane communications, and it's amazing.
And the New York Times also, they did some awesome work in this.
Right.
Yeah.
I love now that Bellingcat is part of the Illuminati, and that the far right says that, the crash never even happened, and Bellingcat is covering up for everything. So just tell us what's going on, Nico. Just,
All right, that's our sign to move on, isn't it? Yeah. All right. All right. Sector, why don't you tell us about this quiz from 2017 that you tweeted out and then you just did some new stuff with?
Yep. Yeah. At the end of 2017, I thought, you know what, as a little thank you gift for the Quiz Time crew, I created like an online manhunt. I think in the last 2 years before I tweeted my new quiz, I think like a handful of people finished it. It was way, way too difficult. So I've dropped some hints and I've prepared some new content for that. And then I thought, you know what, let's just create a whole new quiz. And I created a multi-stage interactive quiz. You have to email answers and you get a reply back if it's correct. And there are quite a bit of levels that you have to go through. You simply email start to osintquiz@gmail.com. The subject has to be start. You get every info that you need, and it starts you off. And each and every question that you get is some kind of topic. It's about social media. One topic is specifically about exit information that you can get from a very well-known photo website. And I even dropped in a little hint like, okay, maybe also use the developer's tools and see whether you can find the API of that website, because that gives you all the information you need right in your browser. So
is this like a learning capture the flag almost, where each of the different levels presents a different skill?
Yeah, it's kind of like a capture the flag, but it's more, I call it a multi-stage quiz because you advance with every correct answer that you send in. Okay. You advance to a new question. I drop in some new things that I discovered. I drop in some things that not a lot of people know. So hopefully a lot of people learn something from it. And I've heard a lot of people actually say that they did. And on the other hand, at the end, you get a couple of questions that is just, nuts. Really good OSINT practice for people that are looking to kill some time.
Very good. Well, I wish all the contestants that choose to send that email with the start good luck, and may the odds ever be in your favor. Let's move on to Hindsight is 2020. What is this Hindsight Files? Who put this in the list of things to talk about today, Mr. Nico?
No, clueless on this one.
No, that's me.
Sector.
Yes. Brittany Kaiser, a whistleblower of the Cambridge Analytica files, and they're dumping original material with a lot of stuff that probably some people want to keep hidden. So I've been really busy with other stuff lately, so I haven't gone through all the details, but here are some links. You can download these zip files, and there are original emails and documents and everything like that. All
Excellent.
going back to Cambridge Analytica.
So these are the internal things that Cambridge Analytica maybe discussed when they were working inside Facebook?
Yes.
Okay.
So
All right.
did anybody else watch The Great Hack with Brittany Kaiser and the whole Cambridge Analytica thing?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about Brittany Kaiser as a reliable source in regards to a lot of this stuff, but I don't know. It seems like she's wanting to try to turn a new leaf and do the correct thing. I just, from everything that I saw on there, it seemed like she was kind of integral to being part of the whole 5,000 data points per person per attack kind of campaign style stuff. And I don't know. I'm a little bit hesitant to go through and trust this hidden hindsight is 2020 type thing, just because I know that she's kind of full backing it. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's out there. If people want to look into it, we have no idea what's in there. Be careful. There's zip files that somebody else is giving you for free with sensitive data. We've seen many times where this type of thing goes horribly wrong, and those things can have Trojans, viruses, other things in them. Not saying they are. Just protect yourself.
100%.
All right, so that is the news. How about if we move to shameless self-promotion and upcoming events? And the first one that we have is from an organization that we've seen and a bunch on Twitter, the NCPTF, the National Child Protection Task Force. They're having a conference in Arkansas in the end of June, and it is very inexpensive. And there are a whole bunch of really neat people that are going to be presenting OSINT and other things that you might need if you are somebody that works with children, people being exploited, and maybe even human trafficking.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And Kirby Plessis couldn't be here with us today, but she is one of our members, and she has a website here with a whole bunch of trainings. Some are open to just law enforcement, and some are open to anyone. Then, of course, we have the Open Source Intelligence Summit. Yay. That's my baby. It is happening next month, actually in February. Yeah, it's just a one-day OSINT conference. People like Dutch OSINT guy are going to be there. Ginsberg, you coming?
I don't know yet. I may actually be able to be out there, but we may do something remote as well, so I'm not sure. Everything's kind of...
come on, beer's on me.
Oh,
there you
okay,
go.
never mind, I'm there.
And you heard it here first. Everybody gets a beer on Nico. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. There's also in my Twitter, for those of you that are interested, there is a discount code. It's not a discount code. It's a price reduction code to get the cost of this event down from $800 to $175. Take a look at the my OSINT, my Twitter feed, or I think previous show notes, we put it in there too.
Not a discount code. It's a cool kids code.
That's right. It's like, it's not, don't call it a comeback.
That's right. We never left.
Also, while we're talking SANS stuff, Nico, didn't you just do a webcast?
Yeah, it's recorded now. So I just wanted to point out, if you missed it, you can go look it up. There was a huge demand for me talking about operation security. So I gave a talk from approximately an hour. So yeah, if you want to go check it out, check it out.
Awesome. And that's on SANS's website. There's webcasts and archives. And then lastly, Ginsberg, was this SECAC thing something that you wanted to post?
Yeah. So SECAC, if anybody's in the Kansas City area or going to be in Kansas City on Tuesday the 14th, SECAC is doing their first, our monthly meeting. We do a monthly hacker meetup. So we are doing workshops this time around. Show up at 6:30. I'm going to go through and do an intro to OSINT, hello OSINT, at 7 and at 8:15 there. So if you're in the Kansas City area, or if you're going to be in Kansas City, come see us at SECAC.
Yeah, it looks like a great event. I mean, intro to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
How much does this cost?
This is free. This is absolutely nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we try to go through and do workshops at least 3 times a year where we break it out. We do kind of mini camps where, we're doing at least half an hour, maybe an hour in a specific subject. So you got SSL fingerprinting, you got intro to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency like investigations. You've got a lock picking village. You've got a learn to solder village. I'm going to do the OSINT stuff. So it's a good time. And anytime anybody can get out of Kansas City, come to KC because it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, and beers on Gins.
Yes, and Ginsburg will buy you beers. All right, that's all the time we have tonight. That is all the time we have. And I want to thank huge thank you to Roelof for coming aboard and for answering our questions and for helping us understand a little bit more about Vortimo and about Maltigo and about himself. Thank you, sir, for being on.
Community. Thanks for doing more stuff for OSINT, man.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and Roelof, do you have any conferences or things where people can see you sometime
or
soon?
Social media or anything else we can post about you?
I tend to make it always just about the company and not about myself. We VortimoTech on Twitter. I guess that's the best way to see what we're up to.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Sector, any last words? We're running out of time. So quickly, what do you got?
I got no words. The only thing I can say is tomorrow, weekend OSINT time.
That's right. And if you don't know, Sector, you all should know, you're our listeners. Sector does a terrific industry standard OSINT weekly publication off of his Medium site. Go and visit that absolutely every week. Thank you, sir, for doing that too. Nico,
You're welcome.
Last words?
Bye.
Excellent. Short, sweet, to the point. Wow.
2 weeks.
Ginsburg?
Good. Yep. Okay. Have a good one. Be good in the new year. Learn something new.
Awesome. Yeah. And I've been one of your hosts here, Micah Hoffman. I think that everybody should do one thing. That's stay OSINT curious. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.